Such a niche role that no one really knows exists, but once you get into your business career, and especially in tech, it's one of those things that you just can't avoid. You actually have to understand the business really well. It's not around benchmarking, it's really the business. What metrics drive business success? How do you pay salespeople to drive those business metrics? Sales compensation, it impacts finance, right? 50% of the go-to-market budget was variable compensation. Because an underlying principle to all sales comp design is simplicity and ease of understanding, right? That is a baseline. If your account executives or your salespeople are confused about how they're going to get paid, then that's a big challenge because it's disruptive. Once you start getting into some of these deals, and there's just a lot of complexity and there's a lot of moving parts, to place yourself in the shoes of the person whose comp you're designing and what behaviors they're doing, a very strategic function within any given company it's a tough one. It's complex sometimes.
Let's welcome Cal Habayeb from Cloudflare. He is in the compensation design and strategy there. This is a really interesting conversation because he helps work with fast-growing companies, large enterprises, Salesforce and Cloudflare and companies like that, design the right compensation structure to align their incentives for their sales team and other account managers, account executives to help achieve the objectives of the business. And there's a really great quote that I love from Warren Buffett, which is, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the behavior." Well, in this episode, Cal dives into the different pitfalls and things to be aware of when you're trying to design the compensation for your team. And a lot of times that if you're not thinking about things carefully, you can actually put compensation plans in place that are actually the opposite of what your business wants. This is a topic, and coming from an expert in large SaaS companies, I always love gleaning little nuggets for small painting companies and home service companies when you're trying to think through the right structure to incentivize people in your business. Without further ado, let's get into this episode with Cal. Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and I am here today with Cal Habayeb, who is the Sales Compensation Design and Strategy at Cloudflare. We're going to be talking about just that, and I'm excited for this because obviously in the painting world and home services, I see lots of different strategies and compensation plans that businesses try and put together. But more importantly, I'm really interested in businesses like large enterprises that think about this topic in a way that aligns incentives and motivations and behaviors of sales teams towards the ultimate business goal. Cal, first of all, thank you for taking the time to come on and chat today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. Excited to talk.
Yeah, walk me through, like, what does compensation design and strategy, when you told me that's what you did, I was like, I had no idea that existed. And also, it makes perfect sense that someone's thinking about that.
I know it's one of those roles that it's like such a niche role that no one really knows exists. But once you kind of get into your business career, and especially in tech, it's one of those things that you just can't avoid, right? So, I can just get a quick background, professional history. Graduated with a degree in finance, worked in FP&A at Urban Outfitters Corporate as my first job out of college, and kind of got that financial backbone and learned about the P&L and budgeting and forecasting, all those types of things, Excel. And then I moved into strategy consulting. I worked for a firm called Mercer Consulting, and the practice I worked in was human capital, it was called at the time. And really that's just benchmarking for compensation for the most part. I mean, they did a lot of HR related things like talent management and HRIS systems, but really the bread and butter was executive compensation. When you have a publicly traded company, they have to post a proxy publicly along with their 10Ks and 10Qs, and it earmarks how the top employees at that company are paid. It's public, right? So we basically were the advisory company, a consulting firm that advised on how to benchmark executive compensation as part of their compensation committee for their board meetings, so that they could recruit talent and then basically share that information with all their shareholders. But there was this niche practice. I was there for 4 years between Philadelphia and San Francisco that was sales compensation. And rather than focusing on the broad-based compensation benchmarking where people send out surveys to companies and they fill it out and how they pay their people and people use that as a rubric to pay their roles in their company. Sales compensation was really interesting to me because you actually have to understand the business really well. It's not around benchmarking. It's really the business, like what metrics drive business success. How do you pay salespeople to drive those business metrics? So I developed a little bit of a niche in that area with companies across the spectrum, different industries. Like I worked for an insurance company, an online gaming company for as clients, and then I landed in Salesforce, and that was like the beginning of my true tech career in San Francisco. And I landed as a sales comp design manager, and and that's really where I learned how the tech companies operate. Right, they operate on this metric around ARR, right? Annual recurring revenue, and incrementality, like how much can you bring on in additional licenses to use software licenses. So I really got the nuts and bolts of not only sales compensation and the metrics that each parts of the go-to-market, the broader go-to-market work, but really what all the go-to-market functions are. When you look at a company like Salesforce, there is a long life cycle of the customer, right? From getting them in there through BDRs and SDRs, so inbound and outbound sale, getting leads and turnover on those leads and opportunities. If anyone knows anything about Salesforce or CRM, this opportunity management, kind of getting them in the funnel to the core of the account executive. The account executive is the one that owns the account. They own the territory with that account and other accounts, and they're the main interface from a sales perspective from tech company to drive additional ARR, incremental ARR. We call it ACV, annual contract value, right? You learn about all the bells and whistles about how they, a company like Salesforce can grow so big and plug in. It's because they have this sales army of people that can go into the accounts and really help them develop a value proposition to drive their revenue through using the CRM tool and other tools that they have, obviously, like with now AI and marketing automation and analytics and those types of things. And then once you have a sale, right? And you look at Salesforce, you build the revenues, you keep attaching this incremental revenue onto the base, the book of business. So there's a whole organization that is part of go-to-market that is the post-sales organization. You have renewal account managers that make sure that the contracts renew. You have customer success managers who go in there and make sure the product is being utilized. And their whole goal is mitigating attrition and seeing early warning signs and making sure customer satisfaction is high. There's a lot of different metrics that each parts of the business that touch go-to-market really focus on. Obviously, the biggest engine, particularly in growth tech companies, is the account executive, and it's really based on capacity. So basically, the more AEs you throw at your go-to-market organization, the more revenue you'll drive, and the more.
But that's the goal. If the system is designed well, that's the plan.
If the system is designed well, there's a true correlation between capacity deployment and revenue growth, right? I did that for a while. I got to learn all the nuts and bolts. There's so many different little details about how sales compensation works, because if you think about it, sales compensation, it impacts finance, right? Like 50% of the go-to-market budget was variable compensation, because AE plans and salespeople's plans are highly levered. So you'll see a pay mix, which is the split between base salary and variable compensation based on performance of 50-50. So there's a lot of budget tied to it. So finance really cares about it. Obviously, the chief revenue officer and the sales organization and marketing organization, they really care about it, because it's a mechanic to drive growth and then also mitigate attrition of customers through variable compensation. And then there's a huge operational element, because it's not like a salary where somebody makes the same paycheck every 2 weeks and then there's maybe like a annual bump, like a 3 to 5% or whatever based on the merit increases. It's like your payment is tied to specific opportunities that you close in the CRM, and there's a lot of different ways you get paid around that behavior.
Is there any balance when you're doing all that, of making sure that the plan, this like perfectly designed plan, is actually like somewhat easily comprehensible to the sales rep? Like that's a consideration as well, right? Like you could make the perfect thing, but it's like you got to like take 30 minutes to figure out, what should I do though? Like as the sales rep or the account executive, is it obvious to me what actions or behaviors I should be doing on a daily basis to get that? Or is that like a second tier problem that someone else, like that's coaching those account executives, for example, to help them understand, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, an underlying principle to all sales comp design is simplicity and ease of understanding, right? I mean, like that is a baseline. If your account executives or your salespeople are confused about how they're going to get paid, then that's a big challenge because it's disruptive. They focus on thinking about how much they're going to get paid versus actually interfacing with the customer and driving new business. So you don't want sales compensation to be disruptive. So the way we typically do that is we say things like, here are the behaviors that the comp plan is designed around, right? We want you to get new logos. We want you to get longer term contracts because, in the tech SaaS world, it's all about, subscription, right? So we want you to subscribe for a longer period of time. Obviously, there's discounts in there, but we'll pay you more for the longer you sign the contract. There's different products that you want to position. Some of them have more value than others because of a margin profile, right? Maybe some products are maybe like more consultative, which is human based, which is lower margin, versus like a scalable product that is license based, where there's minimal additional opex on that on that product, right? There's a lot of different principles, but the way the comp plan is designed has to be simple and it has to be in the language of the salespeople, right? So, for example, at Salesforce, again, ARR, incremental ARR, annual recurring revenue, is the gold, like the gold standard of the industry. Whether you're an AE at Salesforce or you're an AE in any of these other tech companies, you kind of understand that concept. Now, there's nuances for every single company, but how it operates, what system CRM you use, obviously Salesforce uses Salesforce, but the basic concepts are similar, and you just want to reduce the friction and operational overhead for the sales team to like just keep doing what they do best, and that's interface with
Does
customers.
when someone, a big company, signs up with Salesforce to use as their CRM for their company, their product, does Salesforce like give them access to someone like you to help that company strategize on how they should leverage all the Salesforce brain to like, do that? Or is it like every company just kind of figures out, they decide if it's worth bringing in either a consultant or having someone on staff that does that? And it's all completely up to the individual company to solve that.
Yeah, no, yeah, we all companies pretty much have someone that covers the function of sales compensation. At a smaller company, like let's say your company is less than 500 people or something like that, an SMB company, yeah, it might just be like 10% of the role of an FP&A person that covers the sales team, right? Like
Mm.
they do the P&L, the budgeting, the T&E, all the headcount planning for their sales organization, and then they have like a spreadsheet that they manage sales compensation on.
It could vary in
Early,
complexity.
but as you scale and the complexities of the go-to-market increases, and there's a whole operations team built around the sales force, it becomes a specialized function. Obviously, Salesforce is an example of like a huge company that I led a team of 5 sales comp designers. So our entire job was working with sales leaders in various functions in the go-to-market structure to design their plans and make sure that they were implemented correctly and paid out accurately and set up for success. Whereas now in Cloudflare, it's a way smaller company. I'm one of 2, right, that does this and other things. So it's like an expertise that I bring. That's the largest thrust of what I do, but it's just I have quota setting, I have territory planning as part of the remit, right?
I'm thinking like, is it, maybe it's just like a naive thing to think this way, but I'm like, once you have the strategy and the design, like how is it just like just this iterative, just constantly revising, tweaking, adjusting? And
Mhm.
if it is, then I'm like, doesn't that get annoying for the sales team to just be like, okay, is it like this quarter, the plan is this, and it's like changing that frequently? Or is it like you're testing it on certain reps, or like new reps start and they're on, version 4 of the comp plan, and then you A/B test what happens if we do this comp plan with this group? Like how, or is it a combination of all that stuff? But it seems crazy. That's like, again, from a painting perspective, you have a plan and it's like, here's the plan. You get paid 12% of gross profit or whatever. Go. And then that's as far as they think. But there is like, I'm assuming just like anything else, you're going to experiment with iterations to try and land on like, what's the optimal way to do this? Obviously, go to market with software is far more complex, and there's so many bells and whistles and features and upsells that I'm sure you just don't have when it's a one-off project, right? But yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
It really depends on the industry and the life cycle you are in your company. I would say earlier on, particularly in tech, you don't really know what your growth is going to be. So a lot of like the quota setting, you don't have a lot of historical data to really anticipate how much quota you want to deploy. So like, you salesperson, you have $1 million that you're meant to bring in with the accounts that you're assigned, right? Earlier on, you'd see like quarterly plans where you have a plan design that's set out for a quarter, and then, and a quota associated with that. And then you would have a new plan that next quarter with a different quota, right? And then, obviously as you grow and you have more defined territories and you have more data, then it is just a little bit more iterative, probably a lot more iterative on like the policies and the terms and conditions of the comp plan and all the little tweaks, because once you get to a bigger size company, then there's so many different deal structures, right? Like the deal structure also determine how you get paid, and the different product profiles. So there's just a lot of complexity there. The other layer of complexity, that the reason why we have a team that focuses on this, is maybe in the beginning you can be like, oh well, I'll just give you a flat commission rate, right? But for bringing in revenue, you get 10% of the sale, right? It's pretty simple. But as you grow and maybe you have very specialized roles in go to market where you're like, okay, well, I want you to be a hunter. I want you to bring in new logos. So this is how your plan works. And then this person is managing an existing book of business, and they're maybe more of a farmer, right? Where they want to make sure that people are using their platform, their the product, and that they're renewing, and they can like have enough data to determine, oh well, we need to lift capacity or something like that, so we want to sell you a little bit more licensing. So it really depends on what the strategy of the company is, and how they're introducing new products, and how they're really creating specialized roles that have different ways that they're compensated. For the painting example, like if your company became international, right? Or like you had multiple product lines, you might have different teams that sell those product lines. You might have different salespeople that sell specific product lines, and then an account manager over all of the products as they engage with the customers. Or you might have people that do cold calling, right? Just cold calling. And then, maybe they're more of a junior rep, or, there's variances in segmentation. The way we look at it is SMB, small to medium business, mid-market, and then enterprise, right? Or strategic, which is the top end of enterprise. Like how the AE profile, the salesperson profile, how they engage requires a nuanced plan because of the time it takes to close deals. Down market is shorter than enterprise. The level of executive presence is higher for an enterprise AE versus down market. You have more accounts down market because you just maybe have a territory. Like your territory is the northwest of the United States, whereas an enterprise AE might be like you have 3 accounts and you have to go really deep in those accounts and build relationships with them, and that's all you have to focus on, right? And it's about really making sure that they're happy with selling, and trying to position the partnership with your company in terms of like how Salesforce or Cloudflare can really help you meet your goals. So there's a lot of variables that go into it that yield differences, and the necessity to iterate on the comp plan designs. So
what would you say the part that surprised you as you think back? What surprised you the most about the being in this role once you were in it for a while?
Just how complex it is, right? Like, I have a baseline in finance. I was good with Excel back in the day, and I understand math pretty well, right? But once you start getting into some of these deals, and there's just a lot of complexity, and there's a lot of moving parts. I didn't know. It's kind of like an actuary, right? It's like you have to know a specific subject matter. You have to understand crediting, but you also have to know the human element of it. it behooves you to place yourself in the shoes of the person whose comp you're designing and what behaviors they're doing versus being like the corporate guy who is designing a plan that is cost optimized, inspires growth, but you can operationalize it with whatever data sources you need to make sure you're paying accurately, right? I didn't know going into it on the company side because when you're a consultant and you're working with customers, you just do like this management consulting deck where that's very high level. Here are the principles. Here are some of the mechanics. You kind of get alignment with leadership of the customer, and then you basically hand over the deck and the game plan, and then a black hole happens. You don't know what actually happens, right? Being on the customer side, you're just like, wow, like there is a lot of details and a lot of people that you have to engage with in a lot of different functions to make sure this is successful. I find that my role is really just like a business partner. And I have to know a little bit about everything in the business to be dangerous so that I can basically consolidate all that information in a plan that is incentivizing and works and it's not expensive, right?
And
To the
that, and
company.
so this role in any business that has this, it's not only designing it, but it's also like you're responsible for the result that we want, which is right. It's like I'm hearing, because I can relate to this on the consulting side of making the plan feels good and it's hard, but it's like you feel like we made it to the 3 months or whatever of designing this whole thing, but it could be like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times that length of time to like get this thing integrated and humming and used and like iterating to refine we made that assumption, turns out it's wrong, let's do this instead. And like talking to the
Exactly.
sales managers that they're on board and they are excited and can convey it to the team. There's just a lot of that type of change management, I'm assuming that I assume is your responsibility also.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the biggest indicator of success for a comp plan, and particularly for a salesperson that's their role is driving growth, right? Is the growth outcome, right? We have this thing called an attainment curve, right? Where all the salespeople in Cloudflare, Salesforce, they have a quota at the end of the year on an annual plan. What does the curve of attainment look like in the the account executive population? So you'll have people that maybe only hit 25% of their quota. They're on the lower end of the attainment curve. You have people that hit a median of maybe 80 to 90% of their quota for the year. And then you have the overperformers who have different incentive structures. Like the way all the companies I've worked with and talked to and worked at, they have this thing called an accelerator. So if you hit your quota, you make more money per dollar you sell as a way to incentivize them to outperform against their quotas. Is the attainment curve healthy? Is it a normal bell curve? Is it what you expect? Is it cost optimized, right? Like there is a budget envelope that finance manages. Like, have you designed a plan that blew it out because you didn't really have all the protections and controls in place? And then are the AEs happy? Are they humming? Sales comp is also for salespeople is very much used as a performance management tool. So typically at a high performing growth company, you look at the bottom 10% of performers and they're not going to last long, right? Like maybe they get managed out, right? There's always this throughput of new AEs that are kind of brought into the mix that are ramping, and then the high performers, they like it. They know how to position the product. They're really good at it. They know how to do relationship management with their customers. It really is like the centerpiece in terms of the outcome on performance from a company perspective. The sales field, it's used by HR and sales management to determine who's performing. It really is the gold standard, this attainment mechanism of how well you're doing from your sales vis-a-vis your target, right?
What would you say what's coming with AI, or how is like AI is affecting everything? Are you guys using that? Is there elements of like things maybe that you can now track that you weren't able to before, or making sense of data that would have been hard or difficult before?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, AI helps you come up with a sounding board for design principles. Like we have all these different concepts that we want to roll out. What is typical? How do you do a structure, right? From a design standpoint, it's a little buddy, right? We have these things called spiffs. We have the actual plan that's tied to your variable compensation. But then we have all these promotions that we do over the course of the year based on company initiatives by quarter, top down. We'll do special bonuses or special structures or special prizes, coming up with concepts for that. think AI is really helpful for, especially in a bigger company where you have a lot of questions about, well, I did this deal and I think I should get an exception because, I saved this thing. So there wasn't as much incremental revenue, but I did a lot of work. And without me doing this, I should get credit for it, right? There's a lot of cases that are logged about why people should be paid on a specific deal because there's thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of deals where based on what the AE is talking about, you can have like a bot implementation on the kind of the internal sales comp customer service element. It's like, well, here's the policy. Go look at this. Or like, oh, I see that you're talking about this. Is it this deal you're talking about? Okay, this is, like there's, definitely Salesforce, Cloudflare is starting to, think about how to kind of scale operations through like bot management. And then there's the product, right? Like, I don't see it happening at Cloudflare. Maybe it's happening at Salesforce, but ultimately in the future, this idea of self-service. So right now, the model is you have AEs, they're human beings. They're the ones that interface with the customers and try and position the products. Who knows in the future, you might have an AE that's an AI AE or something like that. Or like, maybe down segment, you don't need to have a human being facilitate that sale. You can have a bot facilitate the sale. Obviously, they don't have to get paid, right? So there's lower margins on those sales, but I don't see that coming into particularly like a segment in enterprise. Like we're just not there yet, but anything could happen in the future where maybe the sales army is also, augmented, let's call it, through a productivity AI. And they also, at Salesforce, they have sales productivity AI, which is like they really help you organize your accounts and pull data and like recommend different plays for you, at least from a sales enablement standpoint. Like it helps you with your opportunity management and next steps and stuff like that, sales productivity. But that could leak into like, okay, well, AEs are interfacing or salespeople are interfacing with this. Maybe how far does sales productivity go into to basically we only need one AE for every $5 million instead of one AE for every $1 million, right? Because the productivity has gotten so strong that you just don't need as many heads, right? That's a future that is possible, but I'm not seeing it, at least at this time.
Yeah, that is interesting. What is there for assigning account executives to revenue? Because account executive is after the sale, correct?
It's before it's the sale. The sale happens with the account executive.
And then they're on that account.
Yeah, they're the salesperson. They're
but then they keep that account until like for renewing also, or is that's when you're saying client success comes in, or it just depends?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a mature company, you really have this idea of a patch or a territory, right? And there are accounts in that territory and you own them until there's some kind of disruption, right? The disruption being, okay, well, that account, you're a mid-market account executive. That account has grown so much. Now it's an enterprise account. So it's going to go to the enterprise territory, right? Like year over year, we have a total restructuring where instead of us breaking down the US by enterprise, mid-market, and SMB, small size companies, we say, okay, well, we're going to actually do a regional model. This sales leader is going to own all of the Northwest, and they have all the different stack there of accounts across those segments. There's always, that's why it's always like an annual, in my experience, an annual planning process, and there is disruption to account owner. But if you do own an account for a long period of time, you will definitely own that account even through the renewal because your whole job is to upsell the renewal, right? Add new product features, restructure the deal to make it larger and give the customer a bigger discount, but they pay more money, right? Like there's all that activity that happens after.
I was going to say so we do automation for painting companies. We help them get their tech stack all lined up. And so our software, the CRM that we use most frequently is HubSpot. So we're a HubSpot partner. And the reason I did it, like went through that partner process, is because I just wanted to make it more seamless. And like, we already know what we want our painting company client to get with HubSpot. And just like, rather than going through the dog and pony show with a sales rep at HubSpot every time, just like, hey, here's the package, go tell, because we aren't selling it. We're just like making the introduction. And we always would get paired with just a random, like every time the client would like, because again of the territories or how it's all being broken out inside a HubSpot system, our painting company client like initiates the conversation with HubSpot, like through us. And occasionally there would be a time when we did it that way, it was pretty smooth and we could get it taken care of pretty quickly. But occasionally some client would reach out to HubSpot before they talk to us. And then we get brought in to kind of like, you know, because now they're like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to talk to you first, whatever. It's like, it doesn't really matter. But we had this one scenario where there was a sales rep at HubSpot that was trying to sell this client like just a huge package of stuff. And I was like, this is like not like they don't even they're, you know, whatever size, $3-4 million, like they don't even have the bandwidth to use half of what you're suggesting. And the sales rep from HubSpot was like, basically got mad at me offline without the client there, and was like, just legitimately said like, we get paid based on the initial contract size. So
Yeah.
like you're literally like taking money from me because the client's interested in signing up, and you're like trying to talk them down to like a smaller
Yeah.
package. And in my mind,
Sounds like you had an experience with an AE in the wild, and
yes,
it's
exactly.
fun.
But in my mind, I'm like, all of the clients that I've brought HubSpot over the last 3.5 years that I've been doing this have like, they love it and they're getting like the ROI on their investment is fantastic. And they're like very integrated into it and they're not leaving. And
Yeah.
we had one client, like it wasn't even a client of ours, but a painting company that like wanted to do it on their own. They signed up for this massive HubSpot package and then they stopped using it halfway through. They were like, this is super expensive, and they left. And so
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, that's an example of a comp design where it's like, are your sales going to go up like for a while? But like, are you actually like, did that rep, was he too incentivized to close the deal at that moment and like lost sight of like, in my like, and when I actually get a chance to talk to someone that like understands our like what we're doing, like I don't really care how much HubSpot subscription I sell. That's not my
Yeah.
motivation. I'm just trying to make sure that the client that I have is getting value out of all the tech that they sign up for, and that they like me and that I'm like guiding them to the right decision. So anyways, that was just a random thing of like, I feel like someone at HubSpot would care or should care about that experience, because if that's happening with like one account executive, how many other people are like that, and how
Yeah.
much money is churning because they just are like so motivated for that sale that there's no. And I understand that it's like there's trade-offs with any plan that you make, but it was just this one experience. I was like, gosh, this, like, I wish I would have had it recorded so I could post it online, because I swear the things, like, I abbreviated it, but the stuff that this person was saying, I'm like, you sound like the worst. Like, this is literally when sales compensation goes wrong. Like, this is
Yeah.
what you do not. It's like every executive at HubSpot's worst nightmare is like, we overshot. We messed up something, you know. But anyways,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a real experience, right? And what we're talking about there is you have an account executive, you have a customer, and then you are like a partner, right? Like you're in the partner ecosystem, and more on the consultative side, probably for the customer to
yes,
right size what they're doing. You know, the AE is always going to try and maximize, right? There are obviously the customer themselves has to kind of understand what they're buying, and should have just like any one of us when we go buy something, we're not going to try and overspend. We have to understand the value proposition of what we're buying and the
yeah,
implementation plan. And there's a lot of times when implementations go wrong and this shiny thing that you bought wasn't actually what you thought it was going to be, and that happens everywhere, right? Would ultimately end up in the stats of attrition. Okay, well, the company's starting to say, okay, wow, our attrition rates as a company are going up. What's going on? Do we need more customer? Do we need to shift resources from the sales field to the customer success field, the people that go in there and make sure that utilization and sign-ons and everything that was contracted in the beginning, those goals are being met, right? So it is a comprehensive approach. And a lot of the time those AEs kind of get weeded out, because once you get a reputation for overselling deals and there being high attrition with the accounts that you sell
yeah,
into,
the plan takes care of
they're
itself.
the plan and performance management, and those people, there's bad apples, and if they traded within a certain window, they would get their money clawed back, right? There's all these different complexities to the comp plan where you actually do look back and it's like, okay, just because you sold it up front, if it attrits within 12 months, that means that we're going to pull money back, because why
Mm,
would we continue to pay you for something that was a bad deal, right? So there's a lot of mechanics that do that. So that happened at Salesforce. That happens probably at Cloudflare. I haven't seen it, but like I'm sure
Yeah,
HubSpot, which is a mini
that makes
Salesforce.
me feel way better. Obviously, you guys have accounted for all those things. That makes sense. Any other things you came to the like in this topic of like sales compensation? Any other closing thoughts before I head to my wrap up questions?
No, I would just say, I'm sure everybody has, especially if you're in a company and you're anywhere around the sales organization, there is this thing called compensation. I like it because it is strategically positioned across a lot of different areas. It's a very strategic function within any given company. You just have to balance a lot of different things, right? And you can want to grow really fast and pay for that growth through compensation, but you might not be able to scale your infrastructure, right? And then you have a lot of people trading because you're growing too fast and you can't keep those customers happy, right? Like it's just a balance out of anything. So be nice to anyone that you deal with in sales comp. Their job is tough, particularly the people that are cutting the checks. Just be very, very nice to them because they want to actually do good for you. They're on your team. They don't want you to not make money, So it's a very sensitive topic, sales compensation, but it's a tough one and it's complex sometimes.
Right. 3 book recommendations.
I would say 48 Laws of Power, which is kind of like an extension of Art of War and maybe The Prince by Machiavelli. That just insight into the human psyche. I think that's a good one. My personal favorite from when I was younger is Of Mice and Men, so I definitely would recommend that. Even a refresher, it's only like 100 pages long, and you can read it in like 3 hours, 2 hours. It's a tearjerker for sure. And then 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, right? He did obviously had a VC and is very successful and really understands how to bring companies from nothing to at least having some kind of baseline. I would say that that's a good one, especially if you're an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. Movie recommendation.
My favorite movie is, and I actually help run a film festival here in North Idaho, so it's close to heart for me. My favorite movie is There Will Be Blood. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but it's a good one. It's mainstream, but it's intense, but it's an incredible movie. Daniel Day-Lewis is my favorite actor. And then one more abstract film I just watched. It's Japanese. It's called Tokyo Sonata. I think it's like mid 2000s, but very incredible movie if you are okay with watching a movie with subtitles. So
okay,
it's a good one. I binge watched like 3 or 4 movies from this director. It's Kiyoshi Kurosawa.
Tokyo Sonata. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
really
have.
good movie.
There Will Be Blood. What's that? There's the guy on the poster I'm looking at right now, and he's also
Daniel
in.
Day-Lewis.
Yeah, he's also the guy in.
Gangs of New York.
No, he's like a native looking guy.
Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, what's there's a where the guy has the air compressor and he kills cows, and he
Oh no,
uses
so
his.
that's a different one.
I know. What's that movie called?
No Country
Oh,
for
it's a
Old Men.
yes, but isn't that the same guy in there, the actor?
No, those movies. It's funny because they're very similar movies. They were released the same year, both incredible movies, but they don't really have overlap in the actors.
In characters.
Yeah, because There Will Be Blood has Daniel Day-Lewis as the main one, and No Country for Old Men is Josh Brolin and that I forget his name.
Okay, this is where Google messed me up. I got to show this to you because I sound like an idiot now. This is what I Google searched. So There Will Be Blood, and then I was like, "Oh, that like right here, this guy."
Yeah,
I was like, "I've
they
seen
get
that."
confused a lot.
And then it's like, "Oh, that's literally." It says "No Country for Old Men," different movie. But I was thinking, "Oh, I didn't realize that." You see what I'm saying? Like, it's all under the title "There Will Be Blood," and I just thought it was like a screenshot of different parts of the movie. I didn't read that right there.
Well, they
So
always get confused because they were released the same year and there's same intense dramas, right, in the West. So
yeah,
it's kind of crazy that they were released the same year.
it looks like the reason that that's showing that is because you can buy them together because they're 2 DVD
A
pack.
package,
So
a
it's a
DVD
package.
2-pack.
Now
Is
even
that
more people are confused because they're completely unrelated, but they're treating them like sequels or something.
Are you going to ask for that 2-pack DVD set for Christmas?
Yeah, exactly. I can't believe it's $19. It's got to be, DVDs are coming down. Got to be
Yeah.
discount. Anyways, this was fun. If people want to get in touch to pick your brain, talk about the North Idaho Movie Festival or whatever, how do you recommend that they do that?
I would say reach out to me on LinkedIn. My subject matter is sales comp, but I touch all things go to market. I've had different roles in go to market other than sales comp. And then if you want to talk about movies, you can go to noidff.com. It's a North Idaho Film Festival. And yeah, we have a big film festival, 3-day film festival every year in Coeur d'Alene in September. So we just got done ours a little over a month ago, and we're already planning for next year. So
Well, who is the winner this last year?
this movie called Recollection is actually a local family that produced a sci-fi thriller in North Idaho and Spokane, and they won the audience award. It's called
Nice.
Recollection. Yep.
Are most of these movies, it's like at least when I think I told you, my production company back in the day, we made a movie about an Ironman athlete. But most of the people that are really serious about film festivals, they don't actually, like, the only way you can watch it is through the film festival because they're submitting it to lots of different film festivals, right?
That's right.
Is that the case here too?
Yeah. So
For
we have
most of these?
shorts, we have feature length, we have documentary shorts, documentary feature length, narrative. So we have a whole mix, and I would say about like a third of the movies that we screened, because there's all the movies that are submitted through the Film Freeway portal, and then we select about half of them, and then we screen about half of the selections, and we create movie blocks because we only have a limit of like maybe 10 to 12 movie blocks every film festival. It might
Mm.
be like 6 shorts, and then one block might be a full feature, right? So we have to kind of curate it. But yeah, you're right. Most of the films you can't find anywhere else. They're not like on Netflix or
And do
whatever.
you watch like every single one that comes in?
The first year I did, this past year, I'm the operations director, so I'm more of like the sponsorship guy and the contracting guy. I'm the treasurer. I probably watched maybe half of them that got submitted this time around. I mean, I
Okay.
participate in the film festival. I introduced films at the film festival. I talked to the directors and stuff like that. But there's two other people on the team that are like more of the artistic directors, the ones that are actually doing the movie evaluations.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Cal. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you around.
all right, Chris, have a good one. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes of the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show. And also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.